So my point is the position of power and influence we have to shape the lives of young people is both an incredible privilege, but also like terrifying. They listen to you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what a privilege to get to do what we do, because I don't have to get up like at 5 a.m. and driving out of work and not see my kid. I don't have to do that, but I choose to do it because I get to help shape the lives of young people. Like, it's a sacrifice. It absolutely is. But we get to do it. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. And so I think we have to maybe reframe that and go, you know what? We get to do this. You get to stand in front of a group of kids and teach them. The trust that is placed in you as educators is an incredible privilege. I think we need to get back to that and go, okay, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of curriculum changes. There's a lot of political stuff, and that will always be there. Is it loud at the moment? I don't know. I don't know if I was just oblivious to it when I first started teaching, but there's a lot of noise.
Welcome to Rainbow Skies for Teachers, the go-to show dedicated to teachers who want to make a big difference in education. Whether you're in your first few years or well into your teaching career, we are here to inspire, support, and empower you with bite-sized tips, simple strategies, and the motivation to lead an education revolution, one classroom at a time.
We're Ashleigh and Alicia from Rainbow Sky Creations, two Aussie teachers who love all things teaching and learning. We are here to help you thrive as you work toward making an impact in your students' lives while loving your life as a teacher.
We are here to help you bring joy, simplicity, and creativity into your classroom on the daily, because
there are rainbows ahead, my friend, and together we're unstoppable.
Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Welcome to Rainbow Skies for Teachers. Buckle up for this interview, everybody, because we are going up, down, around in all different directions with our podcast guest today. Matt from the Art of Teaching podcast is joining us, and we are just going to discuss so many different topics when it comes to education. Now, I had a plan, but you know what they say about plans. I had this plan, this beautiful Google Doc. It had all of these questions on there, and then I asked Matt the first question, and then, the tangent begun, but in the best way possible. So I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. We talk a lot. So I'm going to stop right here and just hand the mic straight over to Matt. Matt, let's kick things off with how you would personally define classroom management or effective classroom management.
Oh, that is such a great question. And I've been teaching for about 16 years, and my view of what effective classroom management has really shifted. I used to think in my early years, in my naivety, that it meant compliance and a quiet classroom. But now I think it's far less about control and creating a safe, predictable space where students can learn. So that could be with clear routines, with consistent expectations, or even just, I think a culture of respect is really important. One of the things that I love now at the moment, I think in the shift of education, is that flattening of hierarchy. I don't have the answers in my classroom. My job is just to ask really good questions. And I think what's really cool is allowing kids to contribute to that. And I love that kids can feel safe and valued in a classroom. I think having those clear expectations and clear routines first up is absolutely vital. I share a fair bit with my students. So I'll go in and say, oh, guys, I've had a really rough night. My kids didn't sleep. Can you just be a bit extra kind to me? Or I'll tell them about things I did on the weekend. I think that really helps to create that culture of trust. Because as I said, I'm not the one with all the answers. I'm the one that gets to create an environment for learning. And that's something which I really love. So it has absolutely shifted since when I started teaching. My classrooms are fun. I did a science lesson today and it was pretty loud, but it's always controllable in the sense if I feel like it's getting off track, I can always bring the kids back to the learning intentions and success criteria. So I have that control, but yet I still allow them to just be themselves. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but being a parent for me has completely changed the way that I approach my job. And so I really take the time to get to know my kids. So there's this little girl today who was just really upset. And I just crouched down and had a conversation. I said, what's going on? And I think it's those thousands and thousands of little interactions with kids that really build an environment where kids can learn. I don't think about it so much in terms of management and control. I think about it in terms of creating like an atmosphere where kids can feel safe and valued, because it is magic. But I think practically, in terms of how I arrange a classroom, is I have like lots of space for kids to move around. So I think that is absolutely important, making sure things like you don't have all the tote trays in the corner of a room, for example, because all of a sudden you're going to have 28 or 35 kids all
Yes.
stampeding like on the Lion King when Mufasa gets trampled to death. And so like there's a couple of practical things. Like I think having space for movement is really important. I don't have my desks in rows. For me, that I don't think that's conducive to collaboration. So I tend to have desks in like little pods and students around those desks. Practically, I think it's really important just to have a clean and clear work environment. I cannot work with piles of junk. I just can't do it. And so for many years, I didn't have a desk, because I found that for me, my teacher desk was just a dumping ground for all my stuff.
Yes.
Figured out where to put things. So not having a teacher's desk was great for me, because it meant I actually had to put things away or throw them away or send them home. So I think having a really clear and really clean working space is so important. And I think finally, no one wants to work in like a boring box. So make your classroom really bright, make it exciting. Put student work up on the walls, allow students to contribute to the space in your classroom. I think that's incredibly important. I love it when kids walk in and they're like, oh, wow, I helped to build this space. I think that's really valuable. That's a really long answer, sorry. I think creating a shared space where there's that culture of trust. Classrooms should be fun and exciting.
It really should be fun. My 6-year-old she's actually not 6 yet. She's 5. She's one of a kind. She's just one of those kids that just beats to the tune of her own drum. And she's been saying this thing lately about school, that she's come up with this idea that school is kid jail.
Oh.
Which I'm like, that's terrible. This is no reflection on her teacher, who is absolutely incredible. She's got all the things happening and all this hands-on learning. But sometimes I think about when she says that, and I'm like, you know what? That's because of the way particular things are structured. And I was talking to someone earlier today. I was doing a podcast interview about STEM.
Yeah.
And we were talking about what kids need as kids. And it comes back down to that idea of, yes, kids want things that are bright. They want things that are welcoming. They want an adult in the classroom that's authentic. When I was listening to you talk, I was like, oh, if I could wrap that up in one word, it would be authenticity.
Yeah, they need that. I think like we get one shot at this. You get one shot, and I'm a primary school teacher. I have so many colleagues that are high school teachers, but I do not know how they do it. For me, primary school is my world. I love it. But we don't get to do this again. There are so many kids in the past that have just sat in classes and they felt that there was something wrong with them or felt like they couldn't contribute. And I just don't want any other kids to feel like that. I want the students that I'm responsible for. Full disclosure, I'm an off-class assistant principal. So that means I'm attached to multiple classes. I don't have my own classroom space, which I'm getting itchy to. I want to get back in there. So I have the privilege of working with amazing teachers, but I want the kids in my stage to, if they're homesick in bed, they better be homesick in bed, because I want them to feel like they're missing out by not coming to school. But I want every kid to walk through the school gates and go, yes, like I am meant to be here. And every kid to walk into their classroom and go, this is a place of learning. I can't wait to be here. I think so much about engagement with kids. And look, you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh, okay, we'll just do coloring for a couple of days. We're tired. No, don't do coloring for a couple of days. Please don't. Kids go crazy when they're bored, when the lessons that you're teaching are boring. We've got to engage our kids. And if your class are not engaged, I get teaching is such a hard job, but it's your job to make that content come alive and make it exciting. And it's on you. If your kids aren't engaged, you're the one that needs to engage them. You're the teacher. And I know my whole life is teaching. I love it. And it is such a hard job, and I want to be sympathetic to that. But we have to get back to this joy and excitement and wonder of classrooms and schools, because they have the potential to be amazing places. And I have the privilege right now of working with the most incredible team of people in the most brilliant school. And I want every student in New South Wales, I know this is a big ask, I want every student in New South Wales to go into school and feel like they belong. They should be there. It's exciting. And I can't tell you, Ashley, the amount of times that either I'm unorganized or my kids have been up all night and my biological children have been going feral all night, and I've got to school and I just don't have my stuff together. Or when I've had a bad night's sleep or when I'm cranky and the kids that I teach are crazy. The correlation I think there is the kids usually misbehave, like they said. But the time that I put in the work to make the content really exciting and I'm on my A game, there's no issues. And I had this colleague of mine, this girl called Emmy, who was just brilliant. And I wasn't particularly organized when I came to teaching. Like I was just like, And I had to learn real quick. And she said, Matt, if you plan hard, you teach easy. And I said, what do you mean? I didn't understand it. If you plan hard, teaching is easy. If you cut corners and don't plan very well, teaching is the hardest job in the world. It's the time that we put the work in to make the lessons exciting and make them engaging. And I had this moment today with my kids. We're looking at ice cubes and insulation and keeping them cool for longer and all that kind of stuff. And the bell rang when it was lunchtime and the kids let out this audible sigh because they didn't want to go out and eat.
That's magic.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it's magic. And I think my hope is that there'd be teachers that are listening to our conversation that go, you know what? I can make a difference. And some days it's just really tough. You get that phone call from a parent or you get a kid that's just really difficult or there's staff politics. It's tough. But you can absolutely create magic in your classroom. I've seen it and I've experienced it. I've been the one that hopefully gets to create that. But I've also, as a little kid in this public school in the middle of England when I was in primary school, I've also experienced just the wonder of what school can be. I know that is a very long-winded question, but you can make a difference. And classrooms should be magical places. They really should. And if yours isn't, that's okay. Just do one thing to instill that sense of awe and that wonder, because kids don't want to be bored. And I don't want to be bored,
No. And I love that you said that you don't want to be bored. We've really been going down this road in education recently where we're like, okay, so teachers need to do this and you need to teach it this way because this is what the research says.
Yeah.
And this is what you have to do. And this way's wrong and this way's, but I'm a big believer in that you as the teacher need to be enjoying yourself as a job.
100%.
And that's one of the first things. Yes, your kids need to learn, but if you're not in there having a great time, being inspired, ready to get the energy started for the day,
Sure. Yeah.
the kids really feed off that.
Absolutely. And teachers don't get paid enough to hate their job.
No, they don't.
Have fun. I came home today and we've got book week tomorrow and I found this white skivvy and I painted black dots all over it because I'm going as 101 Dalmatians. And that's just fun. Just have a great time. And I think be silly with your class, dance around, just enjoy it. And I promise you that some of the homes and the communities that our kids, even in really privileged areas that our kids come from, would break your heart. And sometimes just that connection, that 5 minutes of silliness with their teacher or that joy in that maths lesson is the highlight of the day. And I think about this all the time. As a teacher, there is no such thing as a throwaway comment, because your words are so powerful. And there have been times in my class that I've said, oh, guys, I'm sorry. I was a little bit cranky. I'm really sorry. I should have. And I've never, I don't know, I was just a bit moody or something. Your words are powerful as teachers. You can, as a parent, you can lift a kid up or destroy them in the words that you speak. So I think we have to get back to that sense of awe and that wonder, and also realize that what we say and do as educators really matters. My daughter's in kindergarten and she has the most brilliant kindergarten teacher imaginable. And I've been telling her every day for weeks to do this and read like this. And I know because I'm a teacher, I know how it works. She doesn't read for me. But the moment her teacher says the exact same thing that I'm asking her to do, she goes, Daddy, this is what we're supposed to do. And I'm like, I have been telling you that for months. So my point is the position of power and influence we have to shape the lives of young people is both an incredible privilege, but also terrifying. They listen to you,
Yeah.
And I think what a privilege to get to do what we do, because I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and driving out of work and not see my kid. I don't have to do that, but I choose to do it because I get to help shape the lives of young people. It's a sacrifice. It absolutely is. But we get to do it. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. And so I think we have to maybe reframe that and go, you know what? We get to do this. You get to stand in front of a group of kids and teach them. The trust that is placed in you as educators is an incredible privilege. And I think we need to get back to that and go, okay, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of curriculum changes. There's a lot of political stuff, and that will always be there. Is it loud at the moment? I don't know. Like, I don't know if I was just oblivious to it when I first started teaching, but there's a lot of noise. And I think sometimes we have to just exhale and go, okay, we get to do this. What a privilege. And tomorrow, when whoever's listening to this, when you stand in front of your class, just take a moment. I do this every day. I just take a breath and just go, okay, we get to create something really special today. Some days we do, other days it's chaos.
Yeah, and I think that's the life of
You
a
know?
teacher. But I think there'd be so many teachers listening to this, as I was listening to you talk, Matt, that are thinking about why they became a teacher in the first place. And everything you're saying, they became a teacher most probably to make a difference because they really enjoy being with young people.
Mm.
That energy that kids bring lights them up and they wanted to give back. So I'm hoping that they're thinking back to what made them want to become a teacher in the first place and maybe walk into the classroom, whether you're listening to this in the morning on the way to school or you're listening to it on Sunday and you're going back to school on Monday, walking in with that new sense of purpose.
Absolutely. And we have to get back to that. I revisit my why all the time. And if you don't have, it's like anything, if you don't have a strong why, when you face challenges, which they will come, there's been some really challenging times in my career. There's been bosses that I've worked with that I didn't like, or there's been politics, or there's been parents. There's always stuff. But I think unless you have a clear, like, why am I doing this? And it's not about the holidays. It's not about the money. It's not about the prestige. Like, why am I doing this? And I think you have to get back to that. And I had the privilege of being in a school leadership role. And I ask myself that regularly. Why am I here? What am I doing? And your why will be absolutely tested when you are going through report writing time, or it will be tested when you are dealing with a really challenging situation with a student or a cranky parent or a disgruntled colleague. Like, that's going to be tested. I'm so glad that I figured out my why before those things happened, because it's something I think which really anchors you. And I revisit that all the time. Like, it's so important. And I think on that, Ash, as well, like, for people that are listening that are finding it really hard at the moment, you're not alone. Like, you're not. And there were years when I was in the school for years and I didn't enjoy going. It was just difficult. It was a really hard work environment. And I thought about resigning and I just didn't, I don't know. It wasn't a nice place to go to each day. And that was when my why was tested. So I think if you're in that situation where you're going, oh, why am I here? Take a bit of time, go away in the holidays and write in a journal or whatever you need to do and find out, like, why do you get up each day and do what you do? It's so important. And I remember going for my current job, actually, my current assistant principal job. And I was out the front of the school in the driveway trying to work out how to, like, put my tie on and do all this kind of stuff. And I had this moment, and I think I've shared this a few times before, but I was watching 500 or 600 kids and parents dropping their kids off at the school that I was going to interview at. And I thought, wow, like, what a privilege it is to get to do what we do, because there are countless parents that are trusting essentially strangers to help raise their kids. And I remember getting into the interview and I had all these policy things I wanted to say and all these blah, blah, blah. And the question at the end of the interview was like, why do you want the job? And I just burst into tears. And you don't really want to do that in an interview. It doesn't look great. But
no, it's not the best.
It's not the best. No, but it was just cry. But I think it really reminded me that why we do what we do is because it's such a privilege. It really is. So, yeah.
Did they give you the job on the spot or did you have to wait?
Definitely had to wait. Yeah.
Yes, I hate it when they make you wait for jobs, because I bet at that moment, at that final hour of that interview, they were like, here's our guy.
But I think though, Ash, like, it was a good reminder that it's your heart and your reason why. I can learn all the policies, I can learn all the procedures, but if I don't have that sort of core value of why do we get to do what we do, I think, yeah. And so for me, I've been teaching 17 years, and it's not until recently that has really come back to, okay, like, we get to do this. And to be honest, when I was first going for leadership roles, I thought it sounded good. I was like, yeah, like, it sounds good that you're progressing and doing all these things. It sounds impressive at a barbecue. I couldn't care less about that. I really couldn't. Now, and for me, it's a reminder that why I do what I do is because I get to have a greater impact on more kids. That's it. It's pretty simple. I started my career in kindergarten. The role of a kindergarten teacher, I think, is to make really complicated things simple. And the last 5 or 6 years for me, I just felt this real sort of distilling of purpose around what we get to do as teachers. And yeah, geez, I could talk all day about why, but I might move to the next question.
It's actually something that would be good to sit down and reflect as a teacher, because
Mm,
I think sometimes we're always moving so
yeah,
quickly
yeah.
that did we speak about this on the podcast or did we speak about this before the podcast started? I'm not sure, but we were talking about things just moving so quickly. And I
You
think we were
don't have
talking about it
time.
before. You just don't have time. And this is probably a good reminder to stop and be like, hang on a second, what is my why?
Yeah. And it sounds like such a philosophical, why would I ask about my why? But it is important, I think. And it's difficult to get space. I've got young kids. I'm married. My wife has a busy job just like me. We've got a mortgage, all of that stuff. It's a lot happening. I get it. But we've had to be quite intentional about carving out space to just sit and think and be home. And I would encourage anyone that's listening to this, try and build in rest and recovery and relaxation into your week. Practically, what that looks like for me is we're never out more than 2 days in a row. And we have at least 2 nights a week where we're just home. There's no agenda. We're just sitting down, having a cup of tea, watching a movie.
Wait, I thought you guys didn't have a TV.
We don't have a TV. Oh, good question. So we do have a projector. So we'll put it on our wall and then put it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do. But we might just have a chat. And I guess my point is you've got to find time in the chaos just to slow down. Yeah.
Thinking about on those same lines of connection,
Yeah.
one of the things that you're a really big advocate for is building strong relationships and making those connections with your students. And we've spoken about this a little bit as we've gone along so far. But
Yeah.
what does building these strong relationships actually look like in the day-to-day classroom? Because I know that this can make a massive impact on classroom management.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, and somewhat related to what we were talking about before, slowing down. Just take your time. And I had this moment. There's a little girl in my kindergarten class many years ago, and I was rushing. It was recess, and I was trying to get photocopying done and go to the toilet and get a cup of tea and blah, blah, blah. And I heard her say, "Oh, Mr. Green." I just said, "No, just wait a minute. I've got to do something." And then I got about 10 minutes down the playground, and I just stopped, and I turned around, and I looked at her, and she had this little picture that she drew for me. And my heart broke a little bit. And I went back over to her. I crouched down. And I said, "What is it that you want to talk to me about?" And she said, "I just drew this picture because I really love being in your class. And it's really hard at the moment at home." And I thought, wow, I could have missed that. Didn't get to go to the toilet. I didn't get my caffeine. Photocopier was jammed anyway, so couldn't use it. So didn't achieve all of those quote unquote important things. But what I did do is I got to connect with a student. And many years later, I actually met her mum at the supermarket randomly. And to be honest, I completely forgot about her. And she said, "Oh, she's now studying teaching at uni and she remembers the drawing that she gave you."
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It's amazing. And so I think to answer your question, slow down and remember, like, we're working with little humans here. We're not working with robots. We don't want them to conform and just do everything. They're little humans with perspectives on the world, with challenges, with dreams, with aspirations. These are little people. You have to treat them as individuals that are trying to work out the world. What that looks practically is sometimes like crouching down. I was having a conversation with a kindergarten child today and I was kneeling down and she was showing me something. Don't tower above kids. It's intimidating. It's weird. Get down to their level, get to know them. What I used to do is phone probably 10 parents a week. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'd phone 2 or 3 students a day, try and reach out to them and really get to know. I do that as well at my stage. Every week I'm phoning parents. And part of it is preventative. It's kind of like servicing your car. I never used to service my car. Then at some point, my purple Ford with glitter on the roof, the engine fell out on the end because I couldn't afford to service it.
Yeah.
Then I had to get a new car. So I think it's like you don't have time to phone 10 parents a week, but you also don't have time not to. Your job is to connect and your job is to prevent issues before they happen and also get to know your kids. So I play this game with my team now and I think they like it. I'm not sure. And it's called Who's This Kid? And so I'll put a picture up of a kid on the smart board and the teacher whose kid is in the class can't answer it. Like, you're not allowed to answer. That's your student. So I get my whole stage to say, okay, this kid is Adrian. And the question is like, how can we help him? And it might be, I had a conversation with him. He loves sport and wants to play for the Socceroos. And then the other question is like, what are some of the challenges he's having right now? So part of that for me is to shift the conversation from these are my kids to these are our kids.
Yeah.
So it also causes, I think, to slow down and go, okay, like we need to be having those conversations. So I think it's 1,000 little things every day. Like you're not too busy to have a chat to a kid. You're not too busy to get to know them. What do they want to be when they grow up? What are the challenges? Are mum and dad together? Are they not together? Where do they like to go on holidays? Take the time to get to know the kids. And that's really important because they're little people. I know that sounds so obvious, but like I said, they're not robots. They're little.
No, but I do think we do forget that as we're going along because if you're standing there as a teacher and there's these balls being thrown at you
Totally.
constantly and you're trying to catch them all and some are dropping and others are going over your
Totally.
head. So I can see why teachers do feel that way. And I know I probably say my biggest regret from my teaching career was being too rushy,
Yeah.
like always rushing through because we had to do this and had to do that and had to do this. And I think that there's such wisdom in saying, slow down, make that connection. And even with that game that you were talking about, you're building community that way as well.
Yeah. And Ash, these are things that I didn't think about in the first 10 years of my career. Like I was just trying to get through. I was just trying to find my keys, make it to lunch, not get sick. I get it. It is nuts. But I definitely got to a point in my career where I thought, okay, like I can get through all of the curriculum, but I can miss the point here. I can tick all those boxes. I can squeeze as much as I can in the day, but I can miss connection. And I ask this question of everyone I get to chat to about school, which is so many people. My wife's like, how can you keep talking about school? I'm like, but like when I ask people like who is their favorite teacher, nobody ever like talks about content. No one's ever said I loved Mrs. Smith because she taught me how to measure fractions. No one said that.
No.
I loved working with Mr. Jones because he taught me about the capital cities in Australia. No one, that doesn't matter. Everyone talks about how they made them feel. And that is so true. Like your students are not going to remember the content that you teach them. They're going to remember how they felt in your class. They remember a couple of bits and pieces. But the main thing is when they walked through the classroom door each day, how did you make them feel? And I think that's really important. And so I would prefer to slow down and connect with my kids. And I don't do this right all the time, like far from it. Like even it is really difficult, but I would encourage everyone that's listening to this. If you can have one meaningful conversation with a kid in your class each day, and that might be like 30 seconds, but just one meaningful conversation or one connection with one student in your class. And over the course of 52 weeks, that's every single kid in your class gets one meaningful connection with you. And that will change kids' lives. And I am sympathetic with just how hard and how complex our job is, but it is possible. Like it really is. I experience it every day in our school. Like it's a brilliant place. And yeah, I don't know. It is possible. I've been criticized a lot for being like annoyingly optimistic. I get it. I understand. But what's the alternative? What do we do? Do we just be people that used to care?
You could be the Debbie Downer that sits in the staff room. There's
Right.
always one of those, but that's not fun, really.
No,
is
it's
it?
not fun. So I think just enjoy your class, like connect with your class and realize that this is a privilege to get to do what we do. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit now. Look, I've got written here that they're becoming more common in schools, but I started teaching like close to 20 years ago and restorative practices were in back then. So I feel like, yes, they are in schools. Let's rephrase that and say restorative practices are more and more in schools.
Yes.
How have you used them in your own classroom? Would you agree with that, by the way, to say that this is not a new thing?
I don't think it's a new thing. And it's something that I work with a brilliant educator, this lady called Leanne, and she taught me so much about restorative practices. So I don't know if it's been around forever. I was just oblivious to it, or if it's something that has become more in focus. But I think they're really important. So for example, like asking a kid, like, what happened? Tell me what happened if they've had a really bad day, or what can we do to make it right? Think about this time. There was this one kid in my class that just trashed the room, like just destroyed the room and flipped tables. And we had to evacuate the class. It was a really difficult situation. But I remember sitting with him afterwards and saying, okay, mate, let's try and fix it. let's make it right. And we put the tables back, we stuck everything back on the walls, and we had a really great conversation. And I think we have to give kids the opportunity to be able to fix things and not hold grudges. What I said to this kid is say to any kid that comes to me because they're in trouble, I say every day is a new day. Like, we all make mistakes. And I wouldn't say this, but we just don't hold it over our kids. You don't know what kind of baggage and challenges the kids are coming to school with. And so I think taking the time to get to know them and also helping them to work through these emotions. Like, I know grown men that struggle to control themselves. I see people in traffic and I'm like, whoa, what happened to you? And so we have to give 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, however many year olds, the opportunity to reflect and really think about their emotions. And because we want to build people that are making valuable contributions to society. And by that, I mean people that are able to regulate their emotions, people that can work with other people, that can handle disagreements, people that can de-escalate themselves when things haven't gone right. So I think restorative practice and restorative conversations are hugely important. I mean, there's a couple of different strategies. One of them is like circle discussions. So having kids sit around in a circle and talk about what that experience was like and how we can work together better as a class. I think that is really important. And one of the things about a circle conversation is there's no kind of hierarchy. So it's not me at the front of the class saying, hey, you, what's going on? Or having a conversation around like how we could do better, I think, as a team. But giving kids the opportunity to fix whatever they did is really important. And I think the next day, just going, you know what, every day's a new day. When you come to school the next day, no problem. Because no one wants to feel like they've got a reputation, or nobody wants to feel like someone's got it in for them. I just don't think that's a nice thing. I don't know if I've answered your question there, but
No, you've done really well. As you were talking, one of the things, so I'm trying to do the math. I started teaching in 2007. We started restorative practice at my school, probably 2007 or 2008. It was either my first or second year. And one of the staff members, the typical Debbie Downer, was like, the kids need consequences. They can't just get away with behaviors. But months and months went on. We did all of this as a staff. And one of the kids in the school that did have a reputation and he had very challenging behaviors had to come to the principal's office because he'd done something. And the principal said, okay, sit down. And he said, oh, we're not going to talk about this again, are we?
Yeah.
He was like, okay. So he'd actually wanted the consequence of whatever the punishment was over sitting down and thinking and talking about what he had done. Because over the time that was hard. Learning the new skill set was hard for him.
Difficult.
And you could tell that friction. You're like, okay, actually, we're making progress here.
Yeah. And look, like, I'm a grown man, I'm a trained professional, and some days I'm like, if my biological children ask me that question again, I'm going to lose my mind. It is hard. It is hard for adults. I apologize to my wife and kids all the time because I'm cranky or I've forgotten something, or it's difficult and I'm a grown man. And I think we have to remember that, like, we're dealing with young people that are just trying to figure out their place in the world. And I think kids are brilliant. Once you dig into some children's backstory or family history, you go, wow, like, it is a miracle that you're not reacting even worse than this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I would cope if that was my situation. Like, I noticed when I was working in a couple of schools, I used to just get so excited when it was Friday, like at 2:45, I was like, yes, it's the weekend. I can't wait to go home and it's great. 2 days off, sleep again. This is amazing. Of course, this is before I had kids. And then there was this little boy in my class who 2:45 every Friday got really nervous. And I thought, I wonder what's happening here. And he, the same during school holidays, like he would, just before school holidays, he would have 2 weeks at home and his home life was pretty awful. And so it was, I think, a reminder to me that kids are going through a lot. Sometimes they come to school and I know if I come to school and I've had a fight with my kid or I can't get my wife, I just feel a bit, like some of our kids come at school with a proverbial backpack on and they're carrying the weight of the world. And all it takes is one kid to look at them wrong in a class and they lose their mind. I think just taking the time to dig into that context and go, okay, like, what happened here? What happened this morning that when somebody rolled their eyes at you in class or told you off, what happened that made you react that way? And kids are brilliant and they're amazing and they are so much more resilient and so much more incredible than adults. They're incredible, amazing people. And our job, I think, is to, in many ways, play the long game It is hard because sometimes you've got to be the authority figure and say, you know what, that's not okay in this space, or we're not going to tolerate that. And you have to give a bit of quote unquote tough love. And that's really difficult. But I think if it's coming from a place of like genuinely caring and a place of relationship, then yeah, I think that's the way to go. But it's hard. It's really difficult to get that balance. And like I said, I definitely don't get it right all the time, but take the time, get to know them, because they're pretty remarkable little people that are trying to work out a very complicated world that we have no idea what the world's going to be like when they grow up. We just don't.
No, we could never have guessed it,
Right.
what
Like
it
I
was
look at
like
the
for
news
us.
and I freak out and I'm like, whoa, this is intense. I think the kids can sniff it a mile off if you don't genuinely care.
Yeah.
Just care about them. They're pretty cool people, and take the time to get to know them because they're awesome.
Yeah, we've come all the way back to the beginning where we're just talking about being authentic, being your authentic self,
Yeah.
and showing them that you're a human. You understand that they're human. We're all just working this out together, but we can do it in a way that we can all enjoy it and it not be a kid jail, as my 5-year-old would say.
Just have fun. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy going to work. And having fun is not dependent necessarily on external circumstances. You can have fun with your class in a really challenging school or a really challenging day. Like, just enjoy it and go, I get to do this. It's really cool.
Yeah. So classroom management isn't a one size fits all, and neither is, say, just having fun. So how can we adjust our approach for different age groups or different class dynamics or different schools?
That is such a big question and I have so many thoughts, but I promise I'll be really quick.
Okay.
I think knowing your syllabus, like just know what is in your syllabus. And I loved when the syllabuses were hard copy and I could
Same.
I still carry them around and I look at them. So I think it starts with knowing your content. And there will be some kids that are just not where they need to be in science, for example, or in writing, but know where they are and know what their next steps are. So I think you got to know your content. Like your syllabus is your Bible and is the document that you've just got to use. So take that thing home and read it. Don't rely on external programs because that is not going to build your professional capacity. Read your syllabus and see what it says because there's some really good stuff in there. Okay. Next thing, I think the whole idea that all kids progress at the same level at the same time through a linear curriculum and content, I think is crazy. Like the idea that we just group kids based on their age that's a whole nother podcast. But I think taking the time to, like I said, know where the next steps are, like use your assessment data, like how is this actually going to inform your teaching and learning? So know what your kids can do, know what their next steps are. Of course, that's your success criteria and your learning intentions. Make it, I think, really personal. In my classrooms, there is no free time in the sense of we're just going to go and waste time. No, there should always be something to extend and support kids. So we're working really hard. I always say to them, are your brains sweaty yet? And they're like, yeah, I just want a break. I'm like, yes, let's keep going. So I think knowing where the kids are at, knowing where they need to go, and also understanding their potential gaps in learning is really important. There are so many different dynamics. Like my background as an LD teacher, supporting kids from refugee and migrant backgrounds, I always made sure that my classrooms were full of vocabulary. So at any point, a kid could get up, pull a word off the wall, write it in their story, use it in their science experiments. I think our content accessible so kids can move through it at different paces. That is a very quick answer to a very complicated question. But I think I'm really opposed to standardization. I think it has to be personal. And I know that's difficult, 28 or 30 kids in your classroom, but I think taking the time to know that our kids need different things. I don't know if I've answered your question particularly well.
Yeah, they do. Kids do need different things.
And they're not all going to love art. They're not all going to love science. And I think about like, how can they present what they can in different ways? Use rubrics.
Yeah.
If kids want to present and experiment in a certain way, then go for it. And I think taking time to set those expectations early on, and also realize that kids might need different things. So practically for me, I just don't sit down. I'm walking around the classroom, checking in my kids, asking questions like, oh, that was really interesting. Can you explain that to me? And getting them to recast it back to me and really engaging with them. So it's 1,000 little prompting questions, I think, to push the kids. But it comes back to, once again, knowing your students. What do they need? And if you don't know your students, that's okay, but get to know them,
Yeah. Take the time to slow down in order to speed up. So take the time to get to know the kids because once you do, then things can progress a lot quicker.
Totally. And I think that obviously brings in feedback. And I'm not saying you should have 32 different writing lessons. That's just impractical. But
Yeah.
you need to know, oh, like in Ash's last piece of writing, she was working on synonyms. So this time, hey, Ash, tell me a synonym. Like just the whole, like Matt was working on full stops and capital letters. Hey, Matt, what about those full stops and capital letters? So
Mm.
being present is super important. And even 2 stars and a wish, I absolutely love that. I love the way that you used similes in your writing. I love the way that you used paragraphs to group your ideas. I wish that you'd gone back and checked your spelling. Like just little
Yeah.
things like that. And what I think practically, if we're looking at something like writing, I've got a little jelly bean table. So I might call out, hey, Ash, hey, Matt, hey, Jane, come, we're going to do a little writing session here. So I'll sit with them on a jelly bean table, give them a little bit of personal support or one-on-one help, and then send them back to the group. Yeah, I think just being present in the class and knowing what they're working on.
Yeah.
There's so much in that question.
If you're a type A teacher like me and you're listening to this, one of the practical ways that I put what Matt's saying into practice is that instead of feeling overwhelmed that I need to get to every student every day with every subject, is I would choose a group of students and they would be my focus students for the week. And they would be the kids that I'd go around and make sure that I definitely connect with them during their maths, their science, their reading, what have you. And then the following week, it would be another group of students. So I wasn't feeling so overwhelmed. It didn't mean that other kids weren't checked in on, but it just meant that I was able to make that core connection with kids as I went along.
I love
And
that.
no one got missed out on, because I do think I was
Yeah.
actually talking to a friend the other day and she was telling me about this incredibly difficult child in her class. Like the story she was telling, I've never actually heard anything like it. And she was asking me, like, what would you do? And I didn't have an answer for it. What I did say is that sadly, what's happening here is that this child's getting all of the resources, attention, energy, and the
Yeah.
ones that miss out are
Yeah.
just those ones that go under the radar. And
Yeah.
they're the ones that I think it's really important that we make sure that we check in on them, that we make the connection with them.
Yeah. And this is maybe going back to what we're talking about before, like just a small amount of meaningful connections with kids make a difference. You don't need to, as I said, do 32 different writing lessons and have 10 different maths groups and all of this stuff. I think like less is more. If you can give a student a piece of feedback for 30 seconds on writing or on science or whatever they're doing, that means the world to them. So I think, as John Hattie says, I'm sure so many of the listeners are aware of him, like meaningful and timely feedback is essential. Like I used to try and give feedback on everything. I used to write in kids' books weeks later when I got around to marking them, well done. It doesn't mean anything. And it doesn't give them anything to go on with next. So I think feedback in the moment and connecting and saying, that was great. How about next time we do this? I think that's how you make those small shifts every lesson. And as you said, you're not going to get to every kid every lesson and be able to give them personalized support. But what you can do is just give a little bit of really meaningful support and feedback to a small group of kids. And yeah, I think that kind of tends to be how I do that. And get back, like, slow down. What do you want these kids to achieve now? But I think it also comes down to, as we said right at the beginning, your classroom routines and your structures and making sure it is a place where you can find stuff. Put your glue lids back on your glue, please. Know where your scissors are, sharpen your pencils. Like it's all of these things that take precious moments out of the learning. So there are things that are out of our control that we cannot control. When Johnny throws up in the back of Sarah's hair during reading group, we can't control that.
Oh, God.
We can't control the sandwich that you find in a laptop trolley. But what you can control is your learning environment. And I think there are things that we can do that just make our job a lot easier. Like I was sick of losing glue lids. I just hated it. So there'd be glues without lids and they'd dry out. So what I used to do is get those little colored dots. You can get it like Officeworks.
Yes, they used to have them on the PM readers back in the
Yes.
day.
And I used to stick green sticker on the glue stick, green sticker on the lid. And when I was in kindy, they just had to match the glue stick to the lid. Super simple, probably the best $4.50 I've ever spent and saved me hours of frustration. So I think getting your like routines and your structures in place can help release you to do what you need to do, and that's connect with your kids.
Yeah.
Take the time. And I didn't listen to that advice in the first couple of years of teaching because I was just busy doing 1,000 things. And it wasn't until I slowed down that I was like, okay, like, how do I set this up set this little world up that I get to have influence and a bit of control over. How do I set it up so it's conducive for learning? And tidy your spaces, tidy your classrooms. Just make it like workable. That's all. It doesn't have to be beautiful and pristine and Pinterest worthy. No, it's a workable space, but make it a space where learning can happen easily.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned this in the intro
Yeah.
that Matt has his own podcast, and I was on his podcast a couple of months ago and he threw some tricky questions at me. So I'm going to throw some back at you.
Go for
Some
it.
questions you asked me back your way. I love this question. What have you changed your mind about when it comes to education, Matt?
Good question. I have changed my mind about what a good teacher is. I thought a good teacher was someone that had everything just beautifully organized and knew everything and had it all together. And I, for many years in my early career, strived to be that. I just wanted everything to be perfect. And now I've changed my mind about what that means. I think a good teacher is someone who genuinely cares and connects with their kids, first and foremost, and just takes the time to get to know them. And so I think I'm rediscovering what it means to be a good teacher. You can be a good teacher in your first year of teaching. You can be a good teacher in your 40th year of teaching. But for me, the thing that I've changed my mind about is what that entails. And being a good teacher for me is someone who just genuinely cares about their students and wants to create the most meaningful and relevant learning opportunities possible. You absolutely have to know your stuff. You have to know your content. You have to take the time to develop your craft. But if you don't care, it doesn't matter. If kids annoy you and you don't want to be there, but you know all the outcomes, it doesn't matter. You have to, first and foremost, care for the kids that are entrusted to you.
That's a great answer.
It's really important. And it's really simple, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's simple when you look at just the basic idea of it, and then you can build it from there.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. Who inspires you in the education space right now?
Oh, that is a great question. My principal does. She is
Okay.
brilliant. So her name is Melanie. Mel, if you're listening, hello. She's inspired me for many years, and I've had the absolute privilege of working with her previously. And she got me my first leadership position. And I am convinced that she oversold me and I had these big shoes to fill. But she believed in me many years ago. And I have seen her move to different schools and transform that school. And so I know that there are challenges and complexities and really difficult things happening in education, but it is possible to build great schools because I've seen it and I've experienced it. So Melanie, you inspire me no end. And she's just one of those rare people that are worth the drive across Sydney each day to work with.
Yeah, go Melanie. We
Brilliant.
need more principals like you. And it actually sounds like the whole time you were talking,
Yeah.
leadership, it starts at the principal and then it's the leadership team, then it's the staff. And all of that teamwork that comes together with the adults in a school really makes a difference with how the school runs and the vibe of the school and all of those things. Go Melanie, because you're really leading a great team, which is therefore giving the kids to such a fabulous education. Okay, final one. What's your coffee order?
Flat white, no sugar.
So you want a double shot in there?
I tried to wean myself off a double shot about 6 months ago, and I had a single shot of coffee, and I was like,
back
There's
to
no
the
point.
double.
There's no
Yeah.
but it is getting to the point where a double shot's $6.50. That's a lot of money.
Oh, don't
Like-
even get me started on the cost of coffee.
We live in the Sutherland Shire, so there is an abundance of coffee shops. But yeah, I think I'm at the point where I'm going to start doing home brews because it's ridiculous.
Let us know how you go with that.
Yeah, I've started, but it's not great. I tend to buy coffee on the weekend with my kids and my wife when we go out, and my coffee order is always a strong flat white.
Very nice. We need to have a coffee one day because Matt and I actually don't live too far away from each other, everybody. We've met in person before.
In person, yeah.
But we do need to go and have a coffee at some stage.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we wrap this up and find out where the teachers can connect with you and all of that jazz, we have started a new tradition on our podcast where a previous guest leaves a question for a new guest. Do you listen to the Diary of a CEO?
I love this. Yes, I do.
So he does it. His podcast is brilliant. So we've stolen his idea. The question for you is, would you rather someone take over your classroom and completely set it up at the beginning of the year, or have someone completely pack it up for you at the end of the year?
Oh, great question. I love packing up my classroom at the end of the year.
Do
Um,
you?
yeah, I love it because I run a pretty tight ship in terms of there's not a lot to pack up. So I would prefer someone to set it up for me. But I love packing up at the end of the year. It's the best. It's one of the highlights because I don't know, I like making it nice and clean. It's very weird, I know.
That is weird. I think I would go the opposite. I think I would have someone pack it up, but I want to set it up.
Yeah. Now they can set it up. I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Great. Finally, Matt, can you tell everyone where teachers can connect with you? Make sure that you give your podcast a little plug as well.
Oh, thank you. I run a podcast called The Art of Teaching, and I get to have conversations with amazing educators every week all over the world that are just doing really cool things. And Ash, you have been on twice.
Yeah.
And so I get to talk about things that really matter in education. And my goal with the podcast is to support you in the classroom. And yeah, every week I walk away feeling more inspired to teach kids. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. Please subscribe. And if you want to connect on any of the socials, just search for the Art of Teaching podcast and that will come up. But yeah, would really love to hear from you. So thanks so much.
He gets some really big guests too. You've interviewed some really important people in education.
Yeah, I
Really
think
impressive.
I have. And it was, I think, a testimony to the generosity of our profession. And even some of these sort of big names in education are always just willing to have a conversation about how we can improve things. And the common threads between teachers in America, teachers in Scandinavia, Africa, Australia, or New Zealand, there are some common threads that bind us all together as educators. So the podcast is a way of having those conversations, but also celebrating the great work that teachers do all over the world. So it's a really fun project. I think it's just entered its 22nd season. It just keeps going. And every week I leave really inspired and hopeful for the work that teachers are doing. Yeah, would love you to have a listen.
Amazing. I will put the link to the Art of Teaching podcast in the show notes and also your social links and things too if people want to connect. Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us today.
Thank you, Ash. I'm such a fan of the work that you're doing at Rainbow Sky Creations. I love it. And as I said before we hit record, I wish I had this resource when I started teaching. I genuinely mean that. And what you're doing is brilliant. So please keep up the good work. I know that there are teachers all over the world that really need what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Wow. That was one wild episode. My brain is tired from all of that talking, but I feel so inspired too. I love how Matt brings his positivity to education because I really think education needs that injection of positivity. There's so many things that are hard about our jobs, and I love it that he really just came in and just gave us some really practical ideas, but reminders of what is so great about being a teacher. And being a teacher is a really good job. It's an important job. It's a special job, and not everyone can do it. So if you're listening to this right now and you're on your way to work or you're going for a walk, thank you for being a teacher. You are really special. Not everyone could do what you do, and that is actually amazing. Thank you so much to my guest, Matt, today. He perhaps is the definition of rainbows ahead. So without further ado, there are rainbows ahead, my friend, and together we're unstoppable. We will see you next week.